You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
The Incredible Huck. Like I said, I'm talking to you on behalf, of my homeboy Killer Cav. Just chilling, hanging out Tuesday, hanging out. Gonna have some great guests. Cav, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I had an awesome, very personally empowering weekend. I just recently started a new business, and if you want to know more about that business, catch me on Facebook. You can certainly find me there. But yeah, very, very positive, uplifting weekend for me. I've got a bright future that I'm looking forward to building, so cool deal there. How was your weekend?
My weekend was I'll just say my week, because it was about 5 days, man. My week was amazing. Like I said last week on the show, I was down in Florida, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, checking out shows, going to shows, making connections, doing stuff for work, my personal, Clark Kent job. But I had a great opportunity to go out there and talk to everybody, make some connections. Went to a Roman Pro Wrestling show. That was pretty sweet. Monday, AWE Wrestling down in Atlanta, Georgia, homegrown 2017. Totally off the chain, man. Let me tell you, the lineup did not fail. Like, it was a stacked. I know a lot of people say it's a stacked card from top to bottom, but it was a stacked card from top to bottom, man. When they saw the return of Ethan Case, back in Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment, the last time they seen him in Atlanta was when he had got injured and broke his ankle. Now he's back at AWE. Sugar D, our friend of the show, Sugar Dunkerton, was in the match with Adrian Armour. Sue Young was on the show. She made an appearance. Sue Young made an appearance and stuff at the show. Let's see, who else? Let's see. You had Gary J, Evan Jalistico, Murder One versus Homicide. I'll get to that later, but that was crazy. We had the Bad Bougie Battle Royal that I was a part of. ROH top prospect Kurt Stallion versus, my former tag team partner, Joseph Agal. That was a great match. Martin Stone versus Chip Day versus your favorite wrestler, the product, David Starr, the WXW champion for the Georgia Wrestling Crown Championship. Freaking amazing. 30-minute, they had like a 30-minute Iron Man match. It was like whoever, you win by pinfall, whoever got the last pin within 30 minutes was the champion. Cliffhanger match. Chip Day was the champion, was about to be the champion, as time was running out, and with 1 second, with 4 seconds to spare, Martin Stone got the pinned Chip Day with 1 second left. He still retained his title. But getting to the main event, the match that brought everybody to this show was Murder One versus Homicide. 20 years in the making. These two guys really didn't like each other. The biggest reason for it is because Murder One originally started his career as the original Homicide, and then you had Homicide. He actually came and took the name and went to ROH and TNA and stuff with it in Japan. So these two guys have known each other for 20 years. Had run-ins in different companies up and down the East Coast and around the world. Ted, when I say they fought in the streets of Atlanta, they legitimately were fighting in the streets of Atlanta. Like, Murder One went for a pin in the middle of the street right outside the venue at the Museum Bar. Was some of the wildest stuff I've ever seen in a wrestling show. It was just fantastic, man. Like, my entire week, just amazing.
That is awesome. Hey, one thing I wanted to bring up real quick. I saw the flyer that's being promoted for the West Virginia Championship Wrestling Show, Miracle on the Mountain, on June 3rd. Man, first of all, that card is stacked. That's going to be an awesome card. Here's how awesome the card is. You're the WVCW heavyweight champion, right?
Yes, I am.
But you're not the main event.
No, I am not. Although I'm not going to say that we won't have the best match tonight, but no, we're not the main event, man.
Yeah, that should give you, an idea of how many legitimate headliners are coming in on this show, and there are a lot. All I gotta say is I'm blown away. It's not often that I really want to get out to a wrestling show. I really want to get out to this wrestling show. But something else I wanted to bring up while I was over on WVCW's Facebook page, happened to watch a match from a month or two ago between you and why am I flipping?
Aaron Biggs.
Aaron Biggs. You and Aaron Biggs. Big ups to the commentators calling you out and saying that you were the greatest WVCW heavyweight champion of all time. Now, I've been watching WVCW stuff off and on for several years now. On Angry Marks, we've actually promoted some of their stuff in the past. I have never heard them put anybody over on air like that.
The commentary team, man, at WVCW is top notch. I'm not gonna lie. Those guys, they work very hard. And they are, I think the big reason for a lot of the WVCW success is because, the supporting staff, the commentators, the camera people, the security, the ring crew, they work very hard to put on the best product. I was shocked because of course in the ring, you don't know what they're talking about and stuff. So when I finally had a chance to see the highlights and stuff for the match and hear the commentary, I was surprised, that they had said that about me. After the match was over with, they told me that was one of the best matches they had seen in that company in a long time, probably in the history of ever. But for them to say that about me was very humbling. I couldn't believe it. They have a huge, the history of the WVCW title is immense and stuff. A lot of West Virginia, North Carolina vets and stuff have held that title and stuff. And for them to say that I'm the best out of all of them was pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, congratulations, Mr. Huckabee. You are moving and shaking things in the world of professional wrestling.
Try to. Speaking of moving and shaking things in the world of professional wrestling, and I'm not even just talking about our guest tonight, because our guest tonight is definitely a mover and shaker in professional wrestling. But I'm talking about the news. Breaking news came out Sunday night, Monday morning. Everybody's been talking about it for the last 48 hours, is the fact that Billy Corgan, frontman for the Smashing Pumpkins, former, money man, part owner of Rev Pro in Chicago. Everybody's seen his debacle and stuff with TNA/Impact Wrestling, has now, agreed upon a deal, is now the new owner of the National Wrestling Alliance. Like, nobody saw this coming. I've talked to a lot of my personal friends and stuff who are, work in the main offices, not only the NWA main office, but work for a lot of the affiliates. Nobody seen it coming. Nobody even knew that Bruce Stark was talking to Billy Corgan about it. Bam, all of a sudden, it's just on the news, Billy Corgan is the new owner of the NWA.
Yeah.
Before I talk about how I feel, what was your first impression when you first heard the news, Dad?
It's like, no way. Well, I mean, I thought the NWA was, growing and stable, and, Bruce Tharp was doing a good job of managing it, and, then this. I mean, I really want to hear the dirt of, what happened here. I mean, is this a case of, Mr. Tharp just deciding, he's had his run and he's had his fun and he's ready to get out, and Corgan just, found a good deal? Or did Billy Corgan get so much money from Anthem and Impact Wrestling over the shakeout of the breakup of their relationship that he just presented them with an offer that was just too good to refuse? Or, I mean, it's just shocking.
Yeah, I've heard some rumors. And like you said, I've heard everything from, Bruce Stark was ready to kind of take a step back from being the owner to, like you said, Billy Corgan just had so much money, he was just offered to refuse, to, it was a mutual deal, that Bruce Stark had made out of the love for the NWA, knowing that, hey, Billy Corgan as the owner of the NWA could take it, places that he probably couldn't have. I've heard all kinds of rumors about it. Me, myself, I'm kind of like in that whole let's wait and see what's going to happen thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still not too sure about it. Any publicity is good publicity. If you subscribe to the, Eric Bischoff school of promoting. But I definitely can't wait to see what his ideas are for the National Wrestling Alliance. I don't know, that he might keep up with the affiliate program that they have now. They have different affiliates all over the country. Or he might just shut all of them down and just have one main NWA company and just fly guys in. Nobody really knows for sure. And I think that there are a lot of people on their toes right now. A lot of people are wondering, like, what's going to happen with the buy-up by Corgan. You know, does that make the NWA kind of a mover and shaker now? Does that make them a player in the game of independent wrestling now?
Yeah,
what do you think, Kev?
I have no idea. I just have no idea. At this time, it doesn't make them a mover or shaker any more than what they've already been. Right now it's just a change of ownership. Does that mean that we're going to see a change in direction? Who knows?
Exactly. I had a friend of mine that was, who made the comment that this may be one of the best things that can happen, not only for the NWA, but for professional wrestling as a whole. Because, of course, maybe not so much now, but there's still a lot of people who are fans of Smashing Pumpkins and may start paying attention to professional wrestling now because Billy Corgan is the owner and stuff, and they follow him and everything that he's doing. So that might bring new eyes to the product. It might not, only time will tell. And like I said, it might be one of the best things that can happen to professional wrestling. I mean, look at New Japan Pro Wrestling for the longest time in the late 90s and beginning of this century and stuff. New Japan Wrestling was on a huge downhill slope. And then they got bought out by the owner of New Japan Wrestling now, and we see where they're at now, where there should be an argument made that New Japan Pro Wrestling is the second biggest company in the world.
Yeah, there's no argument about that.
So yeah. Anyway, speaking about movers and shakers and stuff, we're gonna go ahead and get our guests on line. I think that our fans, listeners, I think that you're definitely gonna enjoy our guest tonight. I'm not gonna give out any hints besides the fact that this person is a mover, is a shaker, has a great idea, has a great mind for the business, and is totally not your typical wrestling promoter / owner. So with that being said, Kev, let's go ahead and give our guest a call, please.
Alrighty, here we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have the great opportunity. We're so lucky and so fortunate to have our guest on tonight. She is the owner, founder, and promoter for one of the hottest wrestling companies in the South Florida, actually the Gulf Coast area of Florida right now. Actually, if you follow anything on social media, if you've been on Facebook, Twitter, any number of these social media platforms, you've definitely heard of her wrestling company, Ignite Wrestling. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I bring to you Miss Kate Artlip. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, Kim Artlip. It's just like it's spelled. It's just, a lot of people say it wrong, but it's exactly how it's spelled.
Okay, I was worried. I was like, I hope the T isn't silent. All right, let's go ahead. Of course, I've done my research and stuff, but I want you to go ahead and give our listeners and fans a really quick background and stuff, because obviously Ignite Wrestling isn't your first foray into professional wrestling. So would you like to give our listeners and stuff a little background on yourself?
A little bit about me. I'm a longtime fan. Not to show how old I am, but I saw my first match in 1969, Bruno Sammartino. And I've been around wrestling for a couple of years, mainly with Ignite, but I did play a character in another promotion that no longer is around. I played their general manager for 3 shows. But no, we started the idea of Ignite about 2 years ago, and it took me about a year, getting to know the wrestlers, researching the industry, talking to other promoters before we actually launched our company in January of last year. We did our first show.
Now, I was going to ask you, because right now, there's so many great companies that's either in Florida or just started in Florida. You have FEW, you have Brainbuster Pro, which has been running for about the same time as you have. Punk Pro Wrestling, they just had their first show, WrestleMania weekend and stuff. What do you think is that Ignite Wrestling, what makes Ignite Wrestling different than a lot of the other companies and stuff in the Miami, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale area?
What kind of sets us apart is we're in the Treasure Coast, so we're kind of in between those areas. So we're kind of a little niche area on the East Coast here. But most of those companies, Brainbuster, you mentioned, Punk Pro, and those, they are all run by wrestlers. They're current wrestlers. And so I'm kind of somebody that's not been in the industry, so I come from it more from a fan's perspective. And when we first started doing our shows, we did matches that didn't fit, the typical formula, heel and face and this and that, because I was doing matches that as a fan I would like to have seen, which, kind of broke kayfabe and made made some people a little upset with me because, you can't put these guys in the ring together. Or, these are two good guys. Two good guys can't wrestle, but we came up with some pretty memorable matches out of it, though.
Oh, definitely. Because I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ignite Wrestling was the company where we last got to see Lindsay Dorado perform or wrestle stuff with the LWO. Am I correct?
Yeah, they did all four of them they were in our show last year. I believe it was July last year. All four of them were there, Jay Rios, John Cruz, Mr. 450. And it just so happened that it was supposed to have been a totally different card, but their opponents, Jay Rios and John Cruz's opponents, couldn't make it because of a traffic accident clear up in St. Augustine, so there was no way they were going to make it to the show. And the guys were like, hey, can we tag together? Can we do whatever we want? And I'm like, you know what? Go for it. Whatever you guys want to do. So we had no idea what was going to happen in that match. And, at the end, Lindsay thanked everybody, and it was a pretty memorable night. Everybody was crying, but it was, one of those moments where you didn't plan for it, but it's one of the things that you never forget.
Now, you were saying, because of course, I'm a professional wrestler based out of North Carolina. I travel a lot. And you mentioned earlier, you put on matches that as a fan you would like to see. And that's kind of, against the status quo. Of course, conventional wrestling wisdom says you always put a heel versus a babyface. So this show, of course, we always give our listeners and fans, a glimpse behind the wall. We know that wrestling fans aren't stupid. So, thanks to the internet, they know all about wrestling insider terms and stuff. But you mentioned that, you don't always follow the whole heel babyface way of booking matches and stuff. You just book matches that you would like to see as a fan, and that's giving you a lot of grief. A lot of people talk to Jeff about you or whatever. Do you think that, that's important to give the fans matches that they want to see instead of, the usual good guy, bad guy, we have to tell a story every match way of thinking?
We're not heavily in the storyline. That's another thing that people were confused about, because we've had promotions of different ones that have had these elaborate long-term storylines. And really, it wasn't so much about a storyline. Aaron Epic and Martin Stone, and I know you're probably familiar with both of them, wanted to have a match. Those guys are both heels. But, we want to have this match. Leo Rush, Desmond Xavier, Lindsay Dorado, Desmond Xavier. I mean, you put two fan favorites in there with similar styles, and they were incredible matches. But most people won't do that because you see typically, the good guy, the bad guy. But the problem is when you do a show like that and you stick to that formula, you're limited in your card. I mean, there's only so many times until you start repeating, and that was a problem that I saw with another promotion. How many times was I going to see this guy and that guy wrestle? I mean, it got to be old. It's the same match over and over and over. But this way, if you put matches together where they're conflicting styles and where they're totally, people that you wouldn't normally see, you give the fans an opportunity to see something special. And that's what I like about promoting.
Well, speaking about special, I mean, the roster, of course, like you said, I'm very familiar with a lot of the gentlemen on your roster and stuff. Martin Stone, Aaron Epic, Mr. 450, Desmond Xavier. You have like a who's who of wrestling talent, or who's who of Florida wrestling right now. So is it very important to you to focus on rebuilding the Florida independent wrestling scene? Or is that just, these guys, they're local to your area, they're very good, obviously, and those are the guys that you decide to focus on?
At that point in time, when we started at that point in time, I still am, friends with Lindsay Dorado and John Cruz, and I've become good friends with Aaron Essex, who also, a lot of people may not know, is the person that runs Punk Pro Wrestling. And, over time, they were introducing us to new faces. Desmond Xavier was down here. Jay Rios introduced me to Desmond. Through Aaron Epic and Martin Stone, we've gotten to know Ethan Case, the Ugly Ducklings, Timmy Lee Breton. So, it's a lot of people that they've worked with that they respect, that they bring to my attention. Alex Cruz, the Aztec Warrior from Elevate Pro in Louisiana, was recently in. But a lot of it is, we have people that reach out to it, but a lot of it is the wrestlers will tell, we'll see matches that they're doing in other promotions, and the wrestlers will say, I had a great match with this guy. I'd like to bring this guy. Can you bring this guy to Florida? I think he could do a lot. And you have to listen to the wrestlers. Because, they know who are the good performers and who give 110%, and, who can get over with the crowd, because, they're excellent judges of that.
Now, okay, so speaking about that as a promoter and stuff, how do I ask this? You say you like to listen to the guys in the locker room, because obviously they're out there in the indies and stuff, and they see who's doing what and where. How important is it to you to keep up with what's going on with what's going on in indie wrestling, not only in Florida, but on the entire eastern United States?
You have to pay attention, and you have watching the indies and indie power rankings and the different podcasts, because I'm listening to probably 10 different podcasts a week, and watch who CZW's bringing up and PXW. You've got to watch, because a lot of the guys that are moving up into Impact, that are moving up into NXT, that are making a name for themselves, that's where they're starting at. That's where they're proving themselves at. So you can't be so focused on only Florida or only one gym. You have to look at wrestling as a whole. Otherwise, you're going to miss some phenomenal talent if you don't do that.
All right, so I have to ask you a question. I know you've been asked that dozens of times and stuff about being a female in the wrestling business, in a male-dominated business, and I hate to put it that way. Obviously, you've been asked how does it feel to be one of, there's not a lot of female promoters. There's very few female wrestling company owners. But do you think that being a female promoter and owner gives you a different perspective as far as what fans may or may like, what wrestlers to bring in, and just overall how to run a wrestling company?
I don't think that gender has a lot in determining who to work with. I've had people that think that I pick guys on how they look, and it's not necessarily that. And of course, I would like to have adorable wrestlers, but it's not that. And I think what makes me a little different than a lot of promoters, other than having large boobs, and is that I have a background in project management. I have a background in where I've been a mediator and advocate, so I'm used to being in male-oriented industries, so it's not that intimidating to me. But I don't think that gender necessarily plays a role, because I've had the advantage of having Linda McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Dixie Carter, Vicky Guerrero, who I have a love-hate relationship with. But they've been out there making women more mainstream in the industry. So it's not really been much of an issue with it, except when you occasionally run into people that when they'll see me and my husband at an event, they gravitate toward my husband first. But other than that, gender's not an issue.
Well, I'll be the first one to tell you, I just saw Martin Stone yesterday, on Monday at AWE, Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment in Atlanta. And I asked him, I was like, hey, so Martin, how do you feel? I asked him about Ignite Wrestling. I asked him about you and stuff. Glowing compliments from Martin, period. I've talked to Ugly Ducklings because obviously they live in Carolina and stuff. Talked to Timmy Lou, who's a very close personal friend of mine. One of them, and I won't mention who, so it doesn't look like I'm trying to get them favors and stuff with the office. But, one of the things that basically they all had great reviews, had great things to say about you. But one person in particular gave you a compliment saying that you are a part of a growing renaissance of Florida wrestling. You know, for the longest time, a lot of people looked at the Florida wrestling, independent wrestling scene as kind of a joke, that it really wasn't that big of a deal. But especially with Ignite Wrestling, they said there's a revival, no pun intended, of professional wrestling in Florida. How do you feel about when people, you know, they start talking about Florida wrestling making a huge comeback, and they bring not only your company, but your name becomes a part of the conversation? How does that make you feel?
I'm honored. One of the things that one of the goals that I had, and I actually said this in an earlier conversation today, is that I want Ignite to earn respect. And to be respected by the workers and to be respected by the fans is a goal of mine. And, you know, when we have our meetings before the shows, you know, when we go over things, you know, we stress, you know, have fun, but remember this is for video. And, you know, but don't get hurt, have fun. When we try to make the atmosphere as fun as possible and as relaxed as possible. And I'm glad that, you know, that everyone thinks highly of it. That's probably one of the best compliments we could get, because we have, really haven't had anybody that doesn't want to come back to work for us. We've got people we'd love to work with. It's just a matter of working them back into our schedule.
All right. Let's talk about the company itself, Ignite Pro Wrestling. First of all, you have a show coming up May 20th and stuff, where you will be crowning the first Ignite champion in an 8-man tournament. Is that correct?
No, that was actually April 15th. We've already done that.
I'm sorry, April 15th. I'm sorry. Yes, April 15th. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, we just had the tournament. Aaron Epic is our undisputed champion. Death-proof Aaron Epic. Oh
man, you can't really get. There's very few people that can I would pick to represent my company. Actually, Aaron Epic is amazing.
First show we did, I was talking to Aaron over to the side. We were watching another match, and I told him that he is the most underrated wrestler in Florida, and I've always believed that. I've been watching Aaron wrestle for I'd say 5 years now, 5-6 years now. I've been watching him through various promotions wrestling. And, you know, he does get the recognition like in PWI Top 500, but he is probably one of the most phenomenal wrestlers that I know, and, you know, not only in the ring, but out of the ring. And that was a huge decision for me, you know, who would represent the company, because it's not just in the show, it's also on social media. So that's a huge consideration for me, you know, how people conduct themselves outside the ring. And it really did come down to 3 or 4 people that we considered, but, you know, and Aaron was our final choice, you know, when we looked at in that tournament when he came out on top.
Yeah, you speak about social media and stuff, and Ignite Wrestling, not only Ignite Wrestling, but your personal social media is very, very active. How big does the social media game is, how big is that in your overall plan and the success of Ignite Wrestling?
We would be nowhere without social media, and one of the things that I'm really, and you'll notice this if you look at my personal wall, and you probably have, I never talk politics, I don't talk controversy, and I try not to have any very little negativity, and if I do, I generally take it right back down. But you are the product. Even whether you're the business or the person behind the business, people blur the lines between the two. So I'm not as active personally on Twitter as I am on Facebook. But you know, we've worked very hard on our social media, and we did a list of 25 companies in Florida operating just on Facebook. And follower-wise, we're number 1, and that's pretty amazing considering our social media is 14 months old. So since we branded it, so it's been interesting. But you know, I believe that social media is as important or more important than the actual shows, because most people don't make it to a show; they only know you through your social media.
Yeah, I was wondering because you have, like, you know, y'all have a deal with the Fight with the Fight app and stuff. But did you take inspiration from watching companies like Beyond Wrestling at one point was a very small regional company who is now known worldwide thanks to their huge social media presence. Was that a huge inspiration for why you decided to go that route and to make sure that Ignite Wrestling was always on social media, was always in people's faces, that at least that people would see something about your company several times a day?
It's important that we stay in their minds because people, with so much in the media and so much coming through, people don't have the attention span that they used to have. I grew up back when wrestling was you watched it every Sunday and every month a magazine came out. And you dug through the magazine. And there were only 2 magazines. So that should tell you how old I am. But, you have to keep fresh content and everything. And not all the content's about necessarily wrestling. I mean, like you saw today, Brady Knight had a birthday. We sometimes do some comical stuff and put some quirky stuff up on Instagram. But you have to stay relevant and you have to stay within everybody's, stay on everybody's radar. The Pro Wrestling Guerrilla is a phenomenal example of YouTube and social media. I wouldn't have heard of them otherwise if it wasn't for social media. And I love what they do. I love their style. I love everything they do. And they do it so bare bones than most promotions that it's kind of an interesting mix of how they work their social media.
But, I have to admit, Miss Artlip, that for somebody who claims, who has stated several times in several other interviews, that you've always been a fan of the bad guy because bad guys are so much cooler. Why is that? Okay, why as a child did you like, before I get to my question, why bad guys? Myself when I was a child, I gravitated towards the bad guys because I like people who look tough. But why you?
Why do I like the bad guys? You gotta realize when back in the 70s and 80s, you had the Bob Backlunds, and then that they came out and they were very technical and they were very bluff. The heels got the pop, they got to do the outrageous stuff. They were the ones that had the shock value. And it's fun to see somebody that can come out and, you throw bottle caps down and body slam somebody and do it and chair shot this goody two-shoes guy. And you can't help it but you like it. So, it's just, they're just the forbidden fruit of wrestling. And as a fan, I've always loved, how outside the box they can go because, faces can only do certain things. And that was the formula for years. But, a heel can come out there and just be so over the top ridiculous. You can't help but enjoy it.
Do you ever think that we'll see a return to the old school wrestling heel? It seems like nowadays, there's some guys out there who relish in being a heel. Aaron Epic, in my opinion, is one, like you say, he's very super underrated. But one of the top 10 heel guys who are heels and stuff, who could be a heel, not only in Florida but on the East Coast. I love watching him work as a heel because you can tell that he really relishes that role. But do you think that we'll ever see a return to guys who really just want to be heels and want to get those boos and not be the cool bad guy?
I don't think you can get over, to be honest. Just being booed. I mean, there are some, I take that back. Cahagas is a perfect example. Cahagas doesn't break kayfabe. He stays in character. He does the same thing, and he's beloved. And how many times has he been the NWA champion? But I think that you're going to see people that they've got to have something more than just being booed. There has to be something extra. Otherwise, there's nothing special about them. I mean, it's easy to get booed. You get booed whether you could be booed for being a heel or you could be booed for just sucking as a wrestler. So, you've got to have something extra in there that makes people want to see what you're going to do next.
Well, I'm talking about, there are guys out there who, you can see return to guys who want that kind of heat where, you got to have the police come in and give them an escort. Because I understand, on the indies, you got to make money and you got to sell gimmicks and T-shirts and stuff. But do you definitely think? I'm saying, guys who want to get so much heat that the fans may want to stab them, that they might incite a riot. Do you think we'll see a return to those kind of heels? The guys, back in when the Iron Sheik and stuff, or actually, dating myself a little bit, when Sergeant Slaughter turned heel, and turned on America and became an Iraq sympathizer and stuff. I remember seeing, interviews where he was afraid, but he was really ready to take on that task. Do you think that we'll see a return to guys like that who just want to, kind of be on the edge of, okay, this is wrestling and people understand that this is fake, but I want them so mad that they want to see that they announce that I died in a car crash on the way to the venue that the fans will jump up and cheer?
I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody that can get that over now that kayfabe has been broken so much. I mean, but we still have, we were actually in an NXT show, and I forget who was wrestling, but there was a girl crying. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, because I hadn't seen anybody get that invested in a match in a long time. But she was like a little girl, and she thought everything was real. But, I think people are so jaded, it's going to be interesting to see if we could get back to that.
Is that your goal for Ignite? I mean, if you can find that one person who can get that kind of heat, who can elicit that kind of response from the crowd, would that be somebody that you would be interested in bringing to Ignite?
Oh, absolutely. I don't have a problem bringing heels in. Of course, I get in trouble for yelling at Aaron Epic during matches. I get bad when he's done stuff, and he'll be like leaving the match, and I'll be like, "You suck." But I mean, we've got a couple heels in there. We've got Chico Adams and Braden Knight and their manager Eric Child, and they're really getting the boos. They're getting more and more heat, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can build on that, or if they kind of get stuck. That's going to be the thing. A lot of guys can start out getting heat, but do they know how to maintain it? That's going to be the question.
Good answer. So what, me myself, I'm a huge fan of women's wrestling. What is your ideas for Ignite Wrestling, as far as a women's division, as far as, women talent and women matches?
We just recently, we've had our first, we have actually had 2 intergender matches. We were starting to build a women's division, but if Impact and NXT could quit taking our women, it would be really awesome. So, that's been one of our issues is, we've had Rachel Ellering in. She's wrestling some NXT. Santana Garrett, she's back doing some Impact in NXT. Lacey Lane's going up to NXT. Angel Rose is at Impact now with LAX. So it's like, great, now we have to find more women to bring in. But one of the good things I have to say about the Florida scene, especially with 3D Academy, the Dudley Boys School, is we're seeing a lot of phenomenally trained women coming out. Kennedy Brink, Trisha Dora that just debuted a few months back, and Kaylee Dawn, who's just debuting. So we're seeing some strong, very athletic, very lucha-style women coming out that have a lot more skills than we used to see. And the women that, have been around for a couple of years are at the point that they know they have to bring their skills up to the next level. So I think it's going to be amazing for women's wrestling. We kind of are hoping by September to actually have the women's division to the point that we could actually have a belt. It's just the matter of getting enough women in there that we can rotate through and work with, that we could have a viable division. Because I'd like to have 6 to 8 women that are coming through at least in order to have a division. I don't want it to be like 3, 4 women. I'd like to have be very active.
Yes, me myself, I'm a huge fan of women's wrestling. I feel that when women's wrestling is done right, it can steal the show. You'd be surprised, like you said, there's a lot of very talented young ladies and stuff who are in the business nowadays and stuff. They're putting on some of the best matches on the card. How do I ask this?
See, unfortunately, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. For a long time, women's matches were bathroom breaks. That's when everybody went to the bathroom.
Exactly. I remember at WrestleMania in Atlanta, as soon as they had the women's match, I immediately got up, because I think that's when they had Snooki. I immediately got up and went to the bathroom and missed the entire match, because I just knew it wasn't going to be that good.
Because you were seeing the same women you knew were going over against somebody that you knew wasn't going to be a contender. And, now they're actually, they're matches. I mean, you've got, ODB, you've got Sue Young, you've got all these women, you've got Shimmer and Shine and, all these new divisions popping up and Women of Honor. So we're seeing a resurgence in women's wrestling that, thankfully it's going along with what's going on with WWE and Impact. So, we're seeing a lot of women wrestlers that are finally getting the chance to show that they're athletes and not models.
Do you consider yourself part of the women's revolution in wrestling?
Oh no, I missed that boat. I would have been, if I would have gotten to wrestle, I would have been with Wendy Richter and Cyndi Lauper and appearing on Piper's Pit. That was my day. But
well, now, as far as being a promoter, as far as being an owner, do you consider yourself part of the women's revolution, that you're helping women's wrestling just as much as the talent in the ring?
I would hope them opening doors. That would be, that would be an honor if that's the way people think of me. It's definitely making it a little bit more acceptable. And, other than being an owner and, husband and wife, I've seen husband and wife owners where the wife doesn't do anything except sit there and ring the bell. But, I think we're going to see more women, getting more involved. I just saw, Lalani Kai just got an ownership stake in NWA Florida. She announced on social media, so I'm not sure how that's going to play into what's going on, but we're starting to see now the NWA is recognizing the role of women. But, if she wouldn't have been a wrestler and had a name, I don't think she would have had that opportunity.
Well, yeah, you may be right about that. Okay, so tell us about the next show before, because I know our time is running out. You're a very busy lady, of course. Go ahead and tell our fans and listeners about the next show you got coming up.
We are doing a show May 20th. We're at Team Vision Dojo in Orlando. We've been running in Orlando recently because our normal venue that we had been using is under renovation. So it's going to be kind of a different show for us because we had the opportunity to bring in 4 performers from Chikara to join us. So Fiddy and the Cobra will be there, Crumbles and DeFarge, the tag champions, and the Whisper, as well as the Ugly Ducklings are coming from the Carolinas. Timmy Lou Rhett and White Mike will be there, and Martin Stone's returning. So we're going to see, actually, it was a wrestler request match. Timmy Lou Retton requested a match with Martin Stone. And it was one of those things where I saw it on social media, and I was like, I can make that happen.
Oh, my goodness, man.
So, yeah, Timmy put out there he would love for a promoter to book that match. And I was like, how about July or, May? And they're like, I can be there in May. So you got it.
I might have to make a trip down to Florida just to watch that match. Tim is such a great he's such a great young talent. For somebody who's only been in the business for like a little over 2 years and stuff, he is so great, and has the experience, travel up and down the roads with guys like the Ugly Ducklings, and White Mike, and even myself a couple of times. Like, just to watch him grow in the last year and a half and stuff has been phenomenal. And of course, Martin Stone is just one of those guys that, unbelievably, every time you see him, he just gets better. Like, I don't know how that is, but every time I've seen Martin Stone, he's always gotten better.
I haven't seen him. He hasn't been at Ignite since, September. Yeah, September. I haven't seen him since September. He was unable to be in our November show because he was preparing for the UK show. And so, this is a return for Martin. We haven't seen him since September, so he's undergone not only, all of that experience that he's had, but he's done a bit of a physical transformation that we've been watching on social media. He's very, very ripped and developed now. So it's going to be interesting to see these two styles. Funny story about Timmy Lou. So when Timmy Lou came down in November, he was actually just in the car. If I needed him, I could use him. And I'm like, I want to use him. And we had somebody that called out of the show the day before the show. and we're like, hey, would you mind wrestling Cahagas? And so we actually put him in a match with the Tokyo Monster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing about that act. I was like, hey, so how was the match? And he was just like, man, it was so brutal. It was so rough. Like, God, he just beat the piss out of me. Afterwards, I felt like I got to a fist fight.
I mean, when Cahagas chops, I made the mistake of the first time that Cahagas came down, and I was a little rushed and annoyed. And he said, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to slap that guy full out his back. And he pretty much did that to that poor kid, and I felt so bad about it. And I was like, seriously, never take me seriously when I say something like that. But there's a video, and he's got this kid in the corner, and he slaps. In the back, this poor little guy, he just had raspberries. He said, he had ice on his chest. He said, I'm going to go ride my motorcycle home, and hopefully the swelling will go down.
Jeez, that's so mean.
But, I mean, he's chopping, and, and it was like one chop, two chop, two chop. And then he started doing both hands. Like, he beat that kid like a Cherokee drum. It was horrible.
I know it. I've definitely seen it. If you haven't seen, like, him versus Damian Wayne in any of the number of matches, man, it's some of the most brutal things you could ever see live. So what else do we have coming up for Ignite? You have the show coming up in May. What other events or charities or causes do you have coming up for Ignite?
We've got the show, we're back in July. We're still working on the venue. And, of course, all of our shows, a portion of the proceeds go to Ignite Advocacy, which is our parent company, which, I'm the executive director of. And we work with parents of special needs children. And we teach them to be, informed and powerful advocates for their own children.
Well, that is amazing. I have two sons who are both diagnosed on the autism spectrum and stuff. So anytime, I hear about people doing work or charity work, whatever you want to call it, for children with special needs, that totally warms my heart. So on behalf of my family, and this is me personally say this, on behalf of my family, I would totally love to thank you for doing the work that you do for kids with special needs.
Yeah, it was something that I'd done before I came to Florida. I worked for an organization, West Virginia Parent Trainers, and I have a son that's got learning disabilities, ADHD, and is also gifted. So that was an odd combination to try to get services for. Incredibly verbal, but wrote like a second grader. So it was not the most fun situation. But, we enjoy what we get to do, and, it's something that, if the wrestling ever goes away, I'll miss the wrestling, but I love being able to give back to the community. And that's one of the big things. We've always wanted to give back, whether it's, meet and greets or, we've had, different people that have come and to sing the national anthem. One of our wrestlers has a sister that sings the national anthem at events that's got Down syndrome. And we've had, various meet and greets and little behind the scenes stuff, where we're trying to make the event special for people. And we want to create memories.
One more question before I ask you all your social media information and stuff. What is your vision for not only yourself, but Ignite Wrestling's place in not only the Florida wrestling scene, but the independent scene, period? What is your end game? What is your vision?
Like I said earlier, respect. I'd like to earn respect in the industry for the workers in the company both. One of my short-term goals is I would like to be in New Orleans next year doing a WrestleMania show again. That was something that just fell in our lap last minute, but I would like to be able to do that. But, long term, I would love for Ignite to be considered one of those companies that people prove themselves at on their way to the next level. It's one of the places that every indie worker wants to work at. That would be the dream of mine.
Well, I think you're already on your way for that one. Like I said, with the roster that you created, the Ugly Ducks, Desmond Xavier, Mark Stone, Aaron Epic, the LWO, Timmy Lou Retton, you have one hell of a roster already. You have a who's who in independent wrestling. So, before we let you go, once again, I want to thank you for your time. go ahead and give us all your social media info for not only you, but your company, and any causes that you would like to share with us for our listeners and fans and stuff so they can keep track with you, your causes, and your company.
Definitely check us out, igniteadvocacy.org. That is our parent company. We're on Facebook and Twitter with that. Ignite Wrestling, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, all Ignite Wrestling. And if you want to follow me and get to know me personally, my social media is all Twitter and Instagram is Kim Artlip. On Facebook, you can always find me at Kim Artlip. I am the one in Florida, not the dude in Colorado, so don't get us confused. I feel sorry for that poor guy. He gets a lot of wrestler requests, unfortunately. But, yeah, definitely check us out. We're on YouTube. We're on Pivot Share. And we will be updating our library on Fight TV app shortly. And you can also catch some of our matches on the BTV network on Roku, which is run by Fully Gimmicked, who is our merchandise provider as well.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Artlip. You got any last comments, concerns, statements, or anything you got to make before we have to let you go?
I just wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on the podcast and get to share a little bit about Ignite. And hopefully at some point I'll see you at a show, or I'll be up in your area.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you once again, Mrs. Artlip, for being on the show. We greatly appreciate it. Hopefully we can contact you right before you. I would love to have you back on when you do decide to have a tournament for a women's title, just so we can find, we can get the story on that if you don't mind.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love that.
All right. Thank you once again. We'll talk to you later, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, Kev. Great interview, man. What did you think about our guest tonight?
Great interview, Will. I mean, it's not often that we have, a lot of interviews with women in wrestling, but, I think the last couple of months, we had an interview with, Charlene McAnally, women's, referee out of OVW. And, now you have a woman who's an owner of a wrestling promotion as well. I like it. And they are definitely bringing some great and unique viewpoints to professional wrestling. And you did a great job with this interview, knocking it out of the park, I think.
Thank you very much, Kev. I'm trying very hard, man. I'm a huge fan of professional wrestling. Like I've said before, I always try to follow as many different wrestling indie companies as possible, follow as many wrestlers, and know what's going on in professional wrestling. And I heard about Ignite Wrestling right around October, November of last year. Like she said, she had Mark Stone. I'm a huge Mark Stone fan. I work with a guy down there, the AWE. He's the AWE Georgia Crown Champion and stuff. But, like I said in the interview, she has the list of talent that she has for the show is incredible, man. Like, that's definitely a show that anybody who's trying to advance, who's trying to get better at professional wrestling, definitely needs to be on her show. I think that, and if you follow her on social media, Kev, she'll say it flat out, like, she doesn't do drama, she doesn't do negative stuff, she doesn't do negativity, she's not one of those kind of people that's going to bash somebody else's product. She just, she has her lane, she sticks to her lane, she promotes her company, she promotes things that she's very passionate about, and she goes about her business, and I think that shows with her success.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, Kev, what do you got going on? You got anything special going on this weekend?
I don't have anything too special this weekend. On Saturday, one of my employers is sending me to Louisville for a promotional event for the day. Nothing to do with the Kentucky Derby. But there's a neighborhood in Louisville that's putting together a one-day vendors market. So I'm going to be there representing that employer. And then, I'm just going to be, getting started with my new business again. I got doing a lot of promotion for that. I don't know if Stevie J will let me talk about it on the air in the future. I didn't even let him, I haven't asked him yet. I don't even know if he knows if I'm in this new business yet or not. I should talk to him, but if you're, but I'll just throw this out there. You can go to my Facebook page, Kevin.Fields.777 and find out what my new business is about. Or, I'll plug myself. You can go to my business Facebook page, 3RESCS, and find out what I'm doing there. And, I'm not only looking for new customers, I am looking for a couple new business partners as well. My business is not located just here in the middle of central and eastern Kentucky. I can work with anybody all across the United States. As a matter of fact, that would be great if I can find the right partner to work with to help this business grow. So if you went in on a good business opportunity, message me. We'll get together. We'll talk things.
There you go. We'll talk to Stevie J, because I feel like, you're the hardest working guy in podcast history, man. Like, why shouldn't we promote you, Jeff? Like, seriously, why shouldn't we help you help yourself, man?
Well,
this is our show. We can talk about stuff on our show. Who cares?
Well, it's not wrestling related, so we've tried to maintain a pretty good air of professionalism in that regard, and not try to be too biased about the things that aren't related to wrestling or mixed martial arts or anything like that. So, me and Stevie go way back. We go about as far back as anybody can with any of my friends. So, still, we've got respect for each other, and I respect him, and I'm gonna stop kissing his ass now, and we're just done.
Let's see. This weekend, I was supposed to. It's a bit of bad news. Saturday, the NWA Mid-Atlantic show 0 Hour had to get canceled. I don't know if you know this or not, Kev, but OSHA went through a lot of the armories and stuff. In North Carolina, running inside the National Guard Armory is the backbone of professional wrestling in North Carolina. The majority of shows in North Carolina happen inside the National Guard Armories. They have huge spaces. It's easy to bring the ring truck in, et cetera, et cetera. But they had OSHA went through and checked a lot of the armories, because a lot of the armories in North Carolina, I don't know if you know this or not, Kev, but a lot of them have indoor shooting ranges and stuff to help the soldiers, practice their shooting skills and stuff.
Right.
So they went through and they checked a lot of the levels of lead. Now, a lot of shooting ranges in North Carolina, and a lot of them were dangerously high.
Ooh.
I'm going to say dangerously high. I don't want to say dangerously high because I don't want to scare people. I'm going to say that they were high to the point to where the North Carolina National Guard felt that it was best to kind of shut down some of the armories until they were able to clean them up and stuff and remodel the armories. I think it's ironic that the shooting range has a high level of lead. I'm like, they could have just got like a broom or like a magnet and swept the shit up, but that's not my business, neither here nor there. So the armory that the NWA Mid-Atlantic was running out of has been shut down. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of this stuff came to fruition last week. I think that talking to the promoter and the owner and stuff, they didn't find it out until last Tuesday or Wednesday that they weren't allowed to have their show inside the armory. So they had to cancel the show and reschedule the dates for the company, to when they can find a suitable venue. So my Saturday now is open. I'm probably going to be at home chilling with the wife and kids, just keeping up with wrestling and stuff, trying to set up more interviews for this show so we can give our fans and listeners, some of the best interviews in the podcast world. But Sunday, I'll be in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the Firestar Pro Wrestling. Last time I was in Greensboro for Firestar Pro Wrestling, I was there for the Zone 1 tapings. This time, in the actual Firestar Pro Wrestling show. I don't know who I'll be wrestling yet, but I do know some of the people that will be there. White Mike will be there. Timmy Lou Retton, like our guest was talking about tonight, she'll be there. The Ugly Ducklings. I want to say Cam Carter will be facing Austin Theory, who just got signed to Evolve a couple of months ago. A student trained by A.R. Fox down there at WWA4 in Atlanta, Georgia. This kid has money written all over him. I saw him about a year ago. First time I ever saw him like a year ago. I walked up to the kid and said, "Look, you are money. Get your ass down to Orlando as fast as possible. Because as soon as somebody sees you, they're going to sign you." And sure enough, went down to Evolve. They saw this kid and was like, "Hey, we've got to sign him." So I'm very proud of him. So this Sunday, I'll be in Greensboro, North Carolina for Firestar Pro Wrestling. Saturday, I'll be off, handling podcast business. And then next weekend is back to the races, man. I have a huge weekend. Next weekend is going to be crazy. But we'll save that for Tuesday night. Next Tuesday night show. We'll talk all about that. It's going to be freaking phenomenal next weekend. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. But that's about it, man.
All right.
Anything else, Kevin? Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to mention before we go?
No, I don't want to mention anything else before we go. I do want to give a shout out to all the other members of the Wrestling Nerdcast and that we've not talked to recently or been able to hear from because they are all just, keeping up with awesomeness in their lives, Shouts out to the Bearded Wonder Zane Paisley. Shouts out to Sign Guy and Drew Skills and to the Prophet Rick Craig and, who am I forgetting?
We'll throw Troy Miller in there because he's a big friend of the podcast.
Yes, Troy Miller. Shout out to the Razor Ramones. Hey, by the way, I'll talk some shop here on the air. Did you happen to see that the Razor Ramones are taking requests for new theme songs? And Zane made a suggestion that you might be interested in one.
Yes, I was. Now that I'm finally home and still had a day to rest and stuff, I'm actually going to contact the Razor Ramones about getting some custom entrance music. I'm a huge fan of those guys, man. I think I mentioned on the podcast once before that me and Chris Hero, I was wearing my Razor Ramones t-shirt at a show, and Chris Hero saw it, and me and him started talking about the band and everything. It turns out that Chris Hero is a huge fan of the Razor Ramones as well, so I'm definitely going to talk to him and see what we can work out, man.
There you go. The Razor Ramones are definitely Angry Marks Podcast Network approved. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Exactly. Well, anyway, listening to fans, don't forget to follow, this podcast, download it for free when you go to the Google App Store, when you go to the Apple Store, look up, search Angry Marks Podcast, click on that little button or whatever, scroll down, you'll see all the podcasts that are amazing that happen on this network. Not only, the wrestling Nerdcast, definitely download us so you can listen to us. But grow up and shut up, the Angry Marks Show, what was it, Raw Review.
Raw Reaction?
Am I missing something? Huh?
Raw Reaction, you mean?
Yeah, Raw Reaction. What am I missing, Kev?
We got Raw Reaction, and I can't tell you when we go on there. Actually, we're getting ready to record it right as soon as we get done here. For the longest time it was Mondays, but right now everybody's schedules are so mixed up. It might be a Monday, it might be a Tuesday, it might be a Wednesday some nights. But we try to strive for Mondays, but whenever we do a show, we try to make it a really quality show and make it something worth listening to. Not like that shit from what's his name, Russo. Have you heard this horse shit? And I'll just say it right now, it's horse shit.
Which horse shit is that? About him talking about wrestling fans being gay or whatever?
Yeah, Vince Russo spending a half hour beating his dick over, how gay wrestling fans are. Who cares? Yeah, he's as much as, you know what? I'm gonna say it right now. I don't give a shit what Vince Russo says. He's as big of a fucking mark in this business as any of the goddamn marks listening to our podcasts.
I'm not going to talk shit about Russo. I'll leave that for Jim Cornette. I think he does a way better job bashing Russo than we do.
Indeed, but Angry Tenzai is entertained by the show anyway, and I'm pretty sure he's going to bring it up again. So, if you want to listen to our meta discussion about another wrestling podcast after we get through talking about WWE Raw, listen to the Raw Reaction. But we've got Glove Up or Shut Up, which is our MMA show with Stevie J and Peter H. We've got Thursday Night AMP, where Stevie J comes back with the Great Sudoku and Abby Arthur from Top Rope Press to talk about more wrestling news in the week and some Japanese news as well. Friday nights we've got Ed in San Antonio and Craig and Contraire with their show. The Ed show. I'm a rib Ed there. By the way, Ed, if you're listening, happy birthday last week. I'm sorry I didn't get to say anything. I was busy having a big week, but Ed in San Antonio just celebrated a birthday, so happy birthday there, Ed, and to Ed's show. And, that's pretty much our lineup at the moment. We need to get some more wrestling podcasts going.
There we go. Well, anyway, listeners, fans, follow me on Twitter, W.A. Huckabee. Follow me on Instagram, William Huckabee. Like I said, I'm adding more content to my Instagram and my YouTube page. You can always find me on Facebook, message me, tell me if you like the show, if you don't like the show, or tell your favorite wrestling company to book me and bring me in close to your town. Have Boots Will Travel. Follow me on Facebook, find me on Facebook, send me a friend request, William Huckabee. Anyway, once again, this is the Wrestling Nerdcast, brought to you by the Angry Marks Podcast on behalf of everybody that's a part of this show, Killer Cab, the hardest working producer in wrestling podcast history. I don't care what anybody else says. Fuck them. On behalf of my homie, the Bearded Wonder, Das Wonderbeard, Zane Paisley, on behalf of the Heroes and Legends champion, Smash Hunk champion, Drew Skills, my homeboy, Troy Miller, and the guy who got me into this business, the Prophet Rick Craig. I want to say thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And always remember and never forget, support indie wrestling.